She never imagined she would be placed in such a cruel dilemma. When her daughter needed support the most, she was being forced to choose between her daughter and the man she had married after the divorce. Her daughter, devastated by the loss of her fiancé, was still dealing with the pain of an irreparable tragedy. And now, as she prepared for the arrival of a new life, the mother had to decide, stand by her daughter or save her new marriage. What would a mother choose? And more importantly, what would you do if you were in her place? Don't miss the chance to understand this mother's dilemma. What happens when love and loyalty collide? Jenny, 29 years old, was 8 months pregnant and eagerly awaiting the arrival of her baby with Tony, the man she planned to spend her life with. But Jenny's life was brutally interrupted when Tony, who had always struggled with mental health issues, did something no one could have predicted. He had isolated himself in a dark room of a hotel in the city. That night, after going to a party with friends, he decided to take his own life. But it wasn't in a typical way. He didn't use a gun. Tony, in a moment of despair, called Jenny but couldn't tell the truth. Instead, he apologized and told her he loved everyone. She didn't know, but he was sitting on the edge of the bed, his mind completely clouded by pain. When Jenny received the news, she was in shock, devastated by what had happened right after his call to her. Sarah, Jenny's mother, felt the blow deeply. Not only because she lost someone with whom she still had a bond of affection, but because of the pain and suffering of her daughter. Jenny was in shock, and Sarah knew that her daughter needed her more than ever. Tony's funeral wasn't just a painful goodbye, but also the moment when Jenny began to face the reality that the person she thought she would spend her life with was no longer there. Sarah wanted to be with her daughter, but she knew she also had a responsibility. Jenny lived with her father, James, who was Sarah's ex-husband and in the final stages of cancer. He depended on Jenny for daily care, and Sarah, even after their divorce, was involved in helping care for her ex-husband due to his deteriorating health. The weight on Sarah was unbearable. She wanted to rush to help Jenny, but she also felt responsible for supporting James, Jenny's father, who was in his final days of life. She knew that if something happened to her ex-husband, Jenny would be without both of them. However, Sarah also knew that for her daughter, the mourning was just beginning. The fact that Jenny was expecting a child made everything even more complex. Mark, Sarah's current husband, was in an emotionally difficult state. With James's cancer progressing rapidly, Mark began to feel more and more isolated, believing Sarah was devoting all her attention to her ex-husband and daughter. What Mark didn't understand was that Sarah was simply trying to keep the family together, even after the divorce. But Mark's love and jealousy were making this unsustainable. He felt that Sarah was distancing herself from him, while he struggled with the feeling of being left aside. When Sarah suggested she would spend the night with Jenny to support her, Mark exploded. "If you spend the night there, I'll file for divorce," he said, his voice full of frustration and anger. "This is ridiculous, Sarah. Ask anyone, and they'll see how absurd you're being." Mark's tone was clear. He was jealous of Sarah's attention being focused on Jenny. Sarah's heart was heavy. She spent sleepless nights trying to think about what to do. Jenny, with her newborn baby, was trying to adjust to the loss of Tony, and Sarah knew that her daughter needed her more than ever. But Mark, with James's health worsening and his own fear of losing Sarah, was pushing her relentlessly. Mark's selfishness was causing him to fail to understand the gravity of the situation. Jenny had not only lost her fiancé, but was now facing the responsibility of raising a child alone while dealing with deep mourning. Sarah knew Mark's pain was real, but she couldn't ignore her daughter's suffering. She tried to explain this to Mark, but he was blinded by anger and insecurity. Every time she mentioned the possibility of spending more time with Jenny, Mark became more aggressive, more distant. Sarah was at a point where she needed to make a decision that would change her life forever. The pressure of maintaining the marriage while being the mother Jenny needed was crushing Sarah. She knew her daughter needed her more than anything at that moment, but she also felt that if she lost Mark, everything she had built over the years might collapse. She was stuck between the need to be a good mother and the pressure to be a good wife. Sarah spent her days torn between pain and exhaustion. trying to find a solution that wouldn't destroy everything. When she spoke with a friend, she couldn't hold back the tears. I love Mark, but my daughter needs me. I never thought I would have to choose between the two, Sarah confided. Her friend, listening to her distress, said, Sarah, you can be the mother Jenny needs, but you also need to take care of yourself. Don't ignore what your heart is telling you. Sarah reflected on these words throughout the night. She knew that, as much as she loved Mark, her loyalty to Jenny was something she couldn't abandon. When Jenny lost Tony, she didn't just lose a partner but also trust in herself and everything around her. As a mother, Sarah knew her priority should be Jenny at that moment. But at the same time, Sarah didn't want to fail as a wife. She knew Mark wasn't asking too much, but at the same time, he didn't understand the complexity of the situation. Sarah felt completely drained, unsure of which path to take. The next morning, Sarah finally made her decision. She knew she couldn't delay what her heart was asking her to do. Jenny, who had just become a mother, needed her presence, and Sarah couldn't leave her alone in such a vulnerable moment. I'm staying with her, Sarah told Mark, her voice firm but filled with pain. I can't leave Jenny right now. I know you're suffering, but my daughter needs me. You have to understand that. Mark was silent, his face contorted with frustration and pain. He knew Sarah's decision was final, but the fear of losing everything consumed him. I know you need to go, he said quietly, his anger replaced by a sad understanding. But Sarah knew that her marriage was in ruins. She felt she was doing what was right, but the price would be high. When Sarah arrived at Jenny's house, she found her daughter in a state of despair. She hugged her tightly, saying, I'm here, Jenny. You're not alone. Sarah felt a deep relief, but she also knew that by giving this support to her daughter, she had lost something she couldn't get back, her marriage to Mark. But even with the pain of separation, she knew that being with her daughter was the only choice she could make. Sarah's life changed forever. The separation from Mark was painful, but Sarah knew she had made the right choice. She devoted herself to Jenny and her grandson, creating a new life with her daughter, while Mark was left behind, dealing with his own loneliness. Jenny, with her mother's unconditional support, found the strength to move forward. The bond between mother and daughter became stronger than ever, and looking ahead, Sarah knew that despite everything, she had done what was necessary. What would you do in Sarah's shoes? What is your priority when it comes to family, emotional support, or maintaining your relationship? Leave your comment below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories full of drama and emotion.
See you next time.